I think we'll get started here tonight. We may have a few more people join us. I think they've gone over, if you want to submit questions, there's forms or paper to write it down on. Please get it to Chief Seal, and he's going to be kind of the moderator, questioner. He's going to be the one that actually ultimately gets to grill me on everything in the city here. So with that, just way of introduction, for those of you that don't know me, I'm Shawn Nelson. I have the privilege and honor of serving the city of Bloomington from the district, 2nd District here, the southwest portion of Bloomington, and appreciate you taking time out on this lovely, beautiful, warm evening. So it really is an honor to be able to have you come out here and share your thoughts and questions and concerns with me. To start out, I'm going to go through a brief presentation. I'm going to try to keep it brief because I think the most important thing for me is to hear from you guys, and I think the most important thing for you guys is to be able to ask me questions and get some answers to anything that's on your mind. So let me just shift over to my presentation here, and welcome. So a couple of things that we're going to cover tonight. We want to talk a little bit about some of the strategic planning that the city has been doing recently. We've tried to engage the city and get input. So the previous strategic plan that was in place when I was first elected and started was done and developed, and it was a good plan, but it was by the city council. It was the city council's plan, and what we want to do differently this time is make it the community's plan, and so we engaged a number of groups in that, and we'll talk a little bit about that. I want to touch on some of the development that's been going on within District 2. Obviously, a big role that the city plays is community development, economic development, that type of stuff. We got some information about 98th and Normandale, the intersection reconstruction there. I'm sure many of you have had the joy of driving through that and trying to navigate all the cones and where the lane changes are and things like that. We'll talk about the park system master plan, another place that we really tried to transform our thoughts to engage more with the community and get more community input in that plan, not just a staff, a council-driven idea. We'll talk about some park improvements specifically at Dred Scott, and there's other places within District 2 that we have done. Talk a little bit about Normandale Lake Park improvements, some of what's going on up there. And one thing that I'm excited about, not the only thing, but one of the things as a small business owner, we'll talk about our small business incubator that we've received some grant funding on to help our local businesses, our small businesses in the community start up, grow, thrive within this community as they have for decades. And big topic here, we'll talk a little bit about the budget, which will also be on our city council agenda on Monday. So we'll provide some information there, and then Expo 27, I'll give a brief overview of that, and happy to answer any other detailed questions that you have there. If you weren't able to see it, the city manager spoke to the Expo at a recent city council meeting, which should be available online. I apologize that I forget the date of that specific meeting, but it was just a couple meetings ago, gave more information about that process. So the first thing is the Bloomington Tomorrow Together. And again, this was our strategic planning process where we brought people from the community, staff members together over the course of several months to define kind of the strategic plan and then break it down into actionable items. So there were core teams that developed a lot of the messaging, a lot of the values, and then the specific items, and then we had the action teams that broke those down into tasks and things like that. And then going forward, we will continue to update that plan. The city is going to develop a dashboard for its website so people can see our progress on that. So what we're really looking for is that this is a community plan, and that as we implement it, we know if we're successful, we know if we're off track, and people can basically hold us as a city, as a leadership team accountable to that plan. So just shifting to a couple of development things within District 2, not too far from here, just to the south of here, Founders Ridge Had a couple of phases that they did. This is market rate senior housing. One of the big things that we know is we are an aging community. We have a lot of people that live in houses, maybe large houses. Their kids have left, and they may be looking for a place to stay within the community. Actually, the vast majority of them want to stay here in Bloomington and are looking for opportunities. So things like Founders Ridge, other areas within within Bloomington, Friendship Village expanded. That provides a continuum of care for those that need independent all the way through assisted living, those types of things. We just did the entitlements and all of that for MWF's property near Lindale. That's a senior living community, but also has an affordable component to it, including some deeply affordable people for those of our seniors that need a place that's less expensive, which is probably some of them. The other thing I would say within regards to that is we're working on accessory dwelling units, trying to provide flexibility to people to have multi-generational housing. So if you're a family and you need to have your parents live with you, you can do that, but maybe separate the two spaces so there's some independence within that, and then looking at some of what we're doing in terms of lot sizes and things like that to build different products like cottage homes, studio homes, patio homes, those types of smaller format, one level living that work really well for seniors, also work really well for a young individual to get into a home as well. So doing a lot with housing throughout and trying to look at all the needs within the community, and just one example of something that we've done within the second district here. The next example is 108th Place. This is over at France and Old Shakopee, kind of right behind the credit union by Willie McCoy's, Walgreens, all in that commercial development. And this is a workforce housing development, all of it affordable to people at about 60% of area median income. So those are your working people that have jobs, but maybe still need some place that they can live more affordably. And this was one that being in the district, I worked a lot on, and there were concerns from the neighborhood when you start to put a little bit more of a dense product nearby. It wasn't a commercial node, but it was near single family. And so staff worked with the neighborhood there to address a lot of their concerns about the amount of traffic that would go out onto 108th and into their neighborhood, single family neighborhoods. So we worked to specifically orient it to get the traffic to go out to Old Shakopee. Obviously, Old Shakopee is a major road, can handle that type of volume of traffic there instead of the neighborhood. We also just redid the street there, made it wider, added sidewalks, and then we added some measures at France Avenue for the kids within that neighborhood to make it safer to cross over to Westwood for the school, for the park, for all of those types of things. So it's kind of the integration of housing development with schools, with park and recs, with the community, and trying to make a project work for that area. So, yeah, go ahead.
I don't know if you take questions during your talk.
I will, absolutely, yeah.
One question I have about the low-income housing that I've heard about being, in the pipeline, including this is in my neighborhood. They are people, are they Bloomington employees? Are they Richfield employees? Because the impression that's given during the city council meetings is that, this is for the middle school teachers over at Oak Grove, and that these are our local people that are coming into these lower income ones. Is that fact or not?
To be honest, I don't believe that we track or can track specifically who lives there or what community they work in, but if we provide options that those teachers at our schools, those people working in our businesses, whether it be at the Mall of America or at the neighborhood stores, can afford, more of them are going to live there because it's an easier commute. I mean, it wouldn't make as much sense to live there and then work in Maple Grove, as an example, particularly if cost is a burden for you. But we don't track it specifically who works there. The other thing that I would say about this project in particular is it's not particularly low income. It is working, it is below area median income, but median income, half the people in the area are below median income by definition. And so when we looked at this project, I did some calculations with neighbors, and if you look at the single-family homes in that neighborhood, the mortgage that you would pay if you bought one of those houses, about $250,000, $270,000, $230,000, some of those houses in that neighborhood, the rent is higher here than the mortgage would have been on those single-family homes. So these are people that are able to pay more than the people that are paying for the mortgage in those other homes. And that's 80%, or that's 60% of area median income. So these are not low income. These are not the severely low income houses.
Well, maybe that isn't, but the talk in the city council meetings has been about specific, your terminology is low income. So I'm just wondering if, so there's no tie to local employees, because the examples that are given by Mayor Bussey are people on the police force, teachers in the schools, the nurses who work in Southdale or in public health or whatever.
Yeah, and those are the types of jobs that would afford those types of things. I think that is the example. And you know, it could be Bloomington people, it could be a teacher in Richfield. You know, we can't restrict the place that they work there, but it is that type of people that would move in there. And again, like I'm saying, you know, these are not low income type houses. These are people that, you know, we all have in our neighborhoods already. These are people that you know, are great within our communities, and you know, even the people that are in the need for the low income should be welcome in this community, and we're trying to find places for them to live within the community as well. Okay, thank you. Yeah. Let's see, Verizon edition. This was actually a fairly contentious issue that we had. Because of the noise generated by what would be maybe a data center for all the computers and what they have to do for cooling and things like that. What ended up happening on this one is we are essentially precluded by state law from implementing noise standards that are more strict than are in the state code. One of the things that I said, and I'm not going to talk a lot about myself tonight because this is about the city, but one of the things that came up at that meeting was that the work that the neighborhood did on this would lead to positive change, and it did. We revised ordinances related to data centers specifically. We revised ordinances and looked at high impact types of facilities that made a lot of noise, generated a lot of light, those types of things, and looked at where would they be most appropriate within the community so that we don't have those types of conflicts with our residential areas. One of the other examples of that is when we looked at the storage facilities, and the modern or the current way of building those has a ton of light, and we have one over on Penn Avenue that came in before we did that study that faces right directly into residential areas and things like that. And so this looked at how do we, through zoning, take and address the needs that were raised by the community. So it's an example of where the city really listened to those residents. You know, maybe was not able to address the specific concerns at this location, but made improvements for future projects there. 98th Street and Normandale Boulevard. How many of you have driven through there? Yeah. How many of you get confused about which lane you're supposed to go into and the cones and everything? Yeah, that's me. So the idea behind this is to reduce traffic accidents and make it a safer place for car drivers, pedestrians, people on bikes. So dedicated turn lanes, took out those uncontrolled turns, the pork chop type thing that they had in the corners there where people would come off of 98th and go right onto Normandale and maybe check traffic, maybe not check traffic, that type of thing. So there's still a dedicated turn lane, but you have to stop, you have to check traffic and go, and so it should be a lot safer for cars and pedestrians there, and obviously with Normandale Plaza right there, and some other offices and churches and things like that, there is a significant amount of pedestrian traffic in that area that we want to make sure people are safe getting through there. Park master plan. This was another one of those examples of where we really focused in on making sure that we reached out to the community and found out what people wanted. This was one of the big things when I first got onto council that we talked about is we have an aging park system and they're all kind of the same. maybe a little bit of variation, but you got a tennis court, you got kind of a soccer field, you got maybe a softball field, and maybe a hockey rink or something like that, or ice skating rink, and that type of thing. And so what we really wanted to do is take a look at, okay, those are all good things, nothing wrong with those things, but what else are people doing? Are they still using those amenities in the same way? And really try to look at diversity. And so our plan is to offer even more options for people, but it may not be specifically in their park. Each of the parks will be a little bit different, but we'll have more dog tracks, not dog tracks, but dog walking areas they can go to. Blanking on the exact word on that, but bike tracks, skate parks, splash pads, pickleball courts, and really I think a big focus of this was taking a look at the broad spectrum of our community and what they needed, from the young kids to the high school kids. That was a big thing that I heard about because my kids were in high school when I first ran, and oddly enough, they thought I was going to put skate parks throughout the community. And lo and behold, we're going to have skate parks in the community. So they were very excited about that. But also for seniors, with a lot of them play pickleball. A lot of people get out into the parks and enjoy the trails and things like that. So really wanted to have stuff for the entire broad base of the community, not just make those park features for kids and younger kids, but trying to broaden that. Dog parks, that's what it is. It's on my notes here. Dred Scott improvements. So just right across the street here, we've made a number of improvements there. Most recently this year, we updated all the trails throughout there. I think next year we're gonna do some fencing and lighting type stuff. A couple years ago, we redid the concession bathroom area within the wheel there. Ironically, the city owned a concession building that didn't meet health code. So it couldn't be used. They had to set up all the concession stuff outside of the building and not actually use it. So we made that change there. It's obviously a location that attracts people regionally into it to be used for softball, baseball, all of those kinds of things. So very excited about those. So hope you're able to get out and enjoy them. Normandale Lake Park Facility is actually, I don't believe is actually in District 2, but we updated the facility. This is just to the west of Normandale Lake at the end of the parking lot before Highland Ski area. A lot of walking trails in that area that people use, and so we updated this. It's a maintenance garage, so there's a city purpose there, but also includes bathrooms for public use there. So this is all updated and nice, and gives our team the facility they need. Was all funded through grant funding, so it was not through general fund Bloomington tax dollars. All right. So I mentioned small businesses. We've done a lot for small businesses. Obviously, throughout the pandemic, one of our key focuses was our Bloomington businesses and helping them. We set up a Bloomington-specific grant program. We eased ordinances with regards to signs, with regards to outdoor seating at restaurants in order to give the opportunity to expand their capacity when there were restrictions in place. All of those types of things. We work very closely with the chamber and other business community members on those things. But one of the things we're excited looking forward is setting up a small business incubator. The fire department was gracious enough to allow us to use an old fire department or fire station. We did have to build them a new one, but I think it was a good trade-off. So it's over not too far from the Mall of America, and many people aren't aware of what the city does do with regards to small businesses. We work with Grow Minnesota, SCORE, and things like that to help people that have a business idea, to help them get started, a small business to help them grow, and connect them in with various funding sources, marketing sources, things of that nature to really focus on this. This is going to provide sort of the next level of that service. probably will have some type of shared workspaces. So if you just need a place to work for a while, you can go there, plug in, have high-speed internet, those types of things. I remember growing up, my father, he had our company in the house, and when he needed that sort of private, quiet space to work, he went to the public library to do that. And so now we're going to provide a facility there, but in addition to just that quiet space, there will be people there that can be a resource and help connect people in with other resources throughout the state and the region to grow their business, because the bottom line is we want small local businesses to come to Bloomington, to succeed in Bloomington, to grow into Bloomington, and we look at what we have done over the decades with that, with the Toros, with the Donaldsons, with the Mall of America. I mean, we've just got so many fantastic companies here that have been able to grow here. We want to have the next generation of those companies doing that as well. All right, anybody want to talk numbers? All right, a couple people. So good. So let's take a look at the budget here. So this slide kind of goes through the various, the tax levy increase. The City Council did approve a preliminary increase of 10.5%. What that means is we can't exceed 10.5%. We gave guidance to staff at a recent meeting to try to get that closer to 9%. But this is about how it breaks down at the current time. So of that increase, there's 33% increase to police department to fund additional police officers, training, materials like cameras and things like that. So, yeah.
According to what the county sent out, though, it's only 2 additional policemen plus a training person, and it's $5 million. It seemed out of whack.
Okay.
Their policemen get paid a lot more than they're
Well, so I think it has to do with some of the other equipment and things like that. I can get you more information on that, but yeah, right now there's a discussion at the council between 2 and 4 police officers. There's some additional training funding. Again, there's some additional equipment that is within that. I will say there is also increases based on wages for the entirety of the police staff, so that is part of that as well. So all of the officers will be making a little bit more, and that's part of it as well. So,
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. The fire department, yeah.
I just spoke with Booker Hodges, and he was saying something that the police department is already at full staff, so they're actually talking about 2 to 4 more people?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, and I think that they are, if he said they're full staff, and I don't want to necessarily correct him live on the record, but...
Trainees as of this moment, too.
Yeah. And I think that, 2 things on that. One, the city of Bloomington, because of the excellent reputation of its police department, has done a very effective job at recruiting people to come work here. And so we have been very fortunate, especially in comparison to some neighboring communities. The other part of that is you have authorized strength and then the request to maybe expand that strength based on what he is seeing as the need within the community for various activities. The other thing that I would point out is, according to Chief Hodges, the information that they provided, crime is actually at a 4-year low within Bloomington. That doesn't mean there's no concerns, and we all hear about the high-profile things, the catalytic converters, the carjackings, and things like that. Fortunately, we are not in Bloomington quite as impacted by that, and the other thing is the city, at the request of the police department, has acted appropriately when asked to do that. So we passed an ordinance, one of few cities in the state, that specifically allows our police to cite people for a crime just for having cut catalytic converters, unless they can prove that they're a business and or that's theirs or for some reason. So if someone's driving around with 6 catalytic converters in their car and the police pull them over and see them, they have the right to take those. They have the right to arrest and cite those people for a crime. Because that's really important. We've heard that one. I think hopefully you've all seen Chief Hodges. He's quite good at doing news conferences and things like that. We've had some unfortunate incidences, and our police department has responded amazingly to those, and wanting the reputation that that's just not going to happen here in Bloomington. And so kudos to our police department for that. But I think the request is to still add a few more people, a few more officers into there to help with that. I think part of it is also we don't want to burn out the police officers. We rely somewhat on overtime and things like that to have full coverage within the community, and so moderating those things. Similarly, on the fire department, we're adding people. Part of this, not baked into this budget, to be fair, is a SAFER grant to help with 18 additional firefighters, full-time paid firefighters. And then we are looking at adding 6 of them starting in the second half of the year. That is within this budget for the fire department. And the big reason for that is the stats don't lie. We're rolling trucks out to fire calls with maybe 1 person on it, 2 people, so they don't have the number of people that we should have on those trucks. They respond to every call. We get the people we need there to every call, but the time frames are not what they should be for a community of our size and sophistication there. So we're really looking at improving that.
Given that it is tight staffing, why is it? Is it just us? I don't know. Or is this common that you guys go out to medical calls?
That is, in reality, that's a standard across the country. That's a shared load. We're actually sharing that load with the police department. And the number of calls we go on is very small compared to how many calls actually occur in the city.
Oh, okay.
So.
Thanks.
You've been to my house, and I appreciate it.
You've been to my house.
They've been to my house too. Yeah.
To drag this out a little further, I've noticed in my travels, I've been retired for 6 years and I spent a lot of time along Old Shakopee Road, and I notice every time I see a first responder fire truck, I don't see them coming from my local stations. I usually see them coming from further, say, East Bloomington. So is that these stations are not being staffed right now? And then a second concern about that is I notice when the first responders ambulances come, they're coming east on Old Shakopee Road from across the river on 169. So they're not also located in Bloomington. So is that a really big problem, or is this just something I'm imagining when I see these things occurring?
So you're not imagining things. We do not have all 6 stations staffed every hour of every day. And that's part of the reason where our staffing is way down. That's part of the reason that we're moving with this change. I will tell you the EMS system across the metro area is very stressed, and there are many times during the day that they are pulling ambulances from much farther away to respond to medicals everywhere in the metro. So that is a function of stress in the EMS system. That's another reason that they send fire on some of those calls, and we just don't have enough people to staff every station. Now, every station still has firefighters at it, and they respond based on pagers and getting paged out. But I have about 99 firefighters right now when I should be at about 155. So we're struggling with a number of things. So what I can assure you is you will always get a response. And to Councilmember Nelson's point, it's not as quick as we want it to be, but somebody will always come.
I would note that this is something that has been discussed since I started on the council, over 5 years ago. This is not a new issue, and so we have been looking for solutions, and this is not the final step. Just want to be clear about that. This is a first step in about a 10-year plan to transform. I believe it's 10 years, is that right? 12? 4?
Yeah.
Sorry, never mind. This is the first step of a longer plan to transform it. The paid on-call model, which has served our community very well. We're one, if not the largest community in a very large area, potentially the entire country, that has a paid on-call system. It's strained, and we know that, and we're looking at how to transform that into a duty crew, a professional paid staff that is there. Just, the reality is it's hard to find people that are able and willing to, not to say volunteer, but to be available to take those calls when they come in, just with the way jobs are currently and things of that nature in family life. So this is a transformation that we've been talking about, that we knew was coming, and we're starting to implement. So I saw 2 questions.
Just for the chief, the EMS system is stressed. Is that the result of the fentanyl, the heroin, the Narcan calls? Is that it?
No. That's part of it, but a very small part of it. It's just a lot of sick people. A lot of sick people, yeah.
So just one second, we had a question back here.
Question, so then Bloomington is all volunteer, correct?
I don't call us all volunteer, I call us a combination department in fire. So I have some career people, a very small number of career people, and most of my people are what we call paid on call. So the call comes out and they get paid by the call.
Okay, so then do you have one of those volunteers that are working at the station all the time? Is there somebody in that station all the time?
No.
Okay.
They respond from home when the call gets out and goes to their page.
Now, I know that there's other communities where if you're a volunteer fireman, you can go there to put those hours in.
There are many different models out there, and we're in the process of changing our model to meet the need of the community. And part of that is adding career people, but a big part of that is still maintaining our part-time people as well.
Good clarification, and the other thing that I think this dovetails with is facilities. We are needing to modify the fire stations throughout the community to meet that need. As the chief said, a lot of our fire stations, the people show up, get on the truck and go. There isn't an adequate space for them to be there to serve it for 24 hours. And so we need to make sure those facilities work for what our community needs at this point. So there's the staffing issue, but then there's also the cost of the facilities and things like that. So I think you had a question.
Yeah, Shawn, I didn't, maybe you're going to address this later in your presentation, so cut me off if that's the case. But in any case, Chief Seal, you're talking about transitioning to a more of a full-time professional department. And I hear that, and what I see is the ramping up of the impact of the fire department that has on the city of Bloomington fiscally. And this is what it says here in the Bloomington newspaper, the most recent one. Beyond the FEMA grant, which I understand expires in 3 years, SEAL is requesting additional taxpayer funding to add firefighters annually in the years to come. So does that mean, Chief Seal, that people like myself on fixed income who are retired are going to see our taxes with Bloomington doing this and this and this and this and this? Because I appreciate the life-saving work that you guys do. Nobody would ever doubt that or question that. However, this all comes at a cost, and a very burdensome cost to those of us who are on fixed incomes, probably a number of the people in this room right now, who are very concerned about what we're reading in the newspaper, in this, about the ever more burdensome tax impact that it's having on us, especially in this economic environment right now. So my question to you, to both of you guys is, and maybe it's on the card there, what tax increases are coming down? We're looking at 10.5%, a maximum of 10.5% this year. That's $800 right out of my pocket right there, right out of my food, my gas, me heat in my house, buying water for my shower. That's $800 more bucks I'm going to pay the city of Bloomington. Am I going to see that every year after year after year after year? What is the end game here? Where project that out for us 10, 15, 20 years. Where are we heading on these expenses? I don't want to have to move to a one-bedroom apartment in Brooklyn Center because I can't afford to live in Bloomington for the past 33 years like my wife and my kids and my family have.
And if maybe I'll jump in on that one. So because that is a policy question for the council. Yes, the costs I think for the fire department are going to continue to go up in order to meet the needs of our community. That doesn't mean that all taxes will go up, and certainly not in the neighborhood of what we're looking at right now. I mean, I think keep in mind the last 2 years this city council has had 2.75% increases, some of the lowest increases in the region. We are taking this transformational change, this opportunity at this point to do some of that. There are other things that come into play in terms of your actual costs. There's some of the costs for people are being driven by the housing market and the fact that commercial property, industrial property has lagged behind residential property. And so as residential property becomes more expensive, your residential property taxes go up in comparison to that because the levy just gets allocated out based on valuation approximately. So the other part of it is to the extent that we're able to build additional tax value, tax capacity within our community, that helps keep it low. As an example, if we're able to raise the property values within the entire community by 5% and the levy goes up 5%, there's not much of a change there. It's just allocated to different people. So as we're able to help businesses start and grow here and succeed here, they're going to be paying more property taxes. As we develop, and I know that some people have concerns about this, but if we develop additional housing units in appropriate places, that's more people that are paying into that tax levy. And so those are some of the ways we can mitigate the costs that are borne by individuals as we transform our fire department, as we look at the needs within the community. The reality, though, and I'm just going to be straightforward about this, is we have a lot of aging infrastructure. You know, we have aging utilities, water, sewer, things like that. And so we have seen increases. I think that was one of the questions that probably come up later. We've seen increases in those. We still have some of the lowest water rates in the region, particularly if you could factor in the softening that the city does. And, you know, we all know it's award-winning water. And the reality is, when you look at that, we're still low there, but we have a ton of infrastructure underneath our roads, underneath the ground there that is going to need to be replaced, and we are trying to smooth out the costs of that. We have the fire station facilities, we had maintenance facilities, we've had other facilities that are older that will take significant expense. Our parks, as we talked about, you know, they were all developed 40, 50 years ago, and, you know, we started on a program of just, let's replace the playground that's there, let's replace the tennis court that's there, and then we stopped and said, is that really the best thing for our community, to be investing millions to replace things that were already there? Are those the right things to do? So I think in terms of cost, what we need to look at is how do we grow our economic base? How do we grow our residential base? How do we wisely invest those limited funds that we have from the community into the things that we need, and how do we prioritize? And those are the conversations we need to continue to have. And, you know, I appreciate you bringing that forward, because a ton of our community, a lot of people in our community are in the same position as you. And even if they're not, you still feel it, right? You know, you still feel it. And we're all mindful of that. We all pay taxes here. I pay property taxes. It's there for all of us. We want to be good stewards of that money. And that's why we try to make sure that people know what's going on. But I also want to just make sure people do understand what's driving those things, and what we can control and what we can't control.
May I follow up on that real quickly?
Yeah, sure.
I do not mean to dominate the conversation, so forgive me for that. But if both you and or Chief Seal could just project out into the future, when are these, we know what's going to happen. The council is going to approve it on December 5th, and we're all going to get, I don't want to say sock, that's a bad use, but we're all going to have real estate tax increases in the city of Bloomington. That's pretty much a foregone conclusion. You guys both work here full time. I mean, you know, you guys both work here, you're city insiders. We're not. We're on the outside looking in. Where are these tax increases going to stop? What is the end game for this? Is it going to go up 10.5%? I mean, say you voted it's 9%, whatever. It's a lot of money. It's way above the rate of inflation. What can my wife and I expect for the next 2 years and 5 years and 10 years? Is it going to keep going up and up and up like that? Because if it is, we can't live here anymore.
What I can tell you in terms of the projections that I've seen, and I apologize, I don't have all of that off the top of my head. I can follow up with exact numbers, but for this year, the budget we're looking at, the 10.5%. When we looked at it last year, we were forecasting 4.5%. What changed from there is we dramatically reduced all of the things outside of police and fire. And that's how we got to the 10.5%, because police, fire, the bonding that we have on the fire station takes up about 8% of that 10.5% increase of the levy. So the other part is 2.5. We shrunk that from 4.5 to about 2.5. My expectation is going forward, we're going to more normalize that into a range that many people have said, you know, a normal range is maybe in the 4 to 5%. That accounts for reasonable inflation, that accounts for reasonable economic and residential growth, so the economic tax base growing and more people paying those taxes, and that accounts for, you know, that allows for the funding to go where it needs to go. So then, my expectation would be going forward, they're not going to be, and I don't think anybody's projecting anything close to 10% on a year-over-year basis for any significant period of time.
Okay, that's reassuring to hear that.
So, yeah, and again, just a reminder, I mean, during the pandemic, we were the lowest in the area at 2.75. We really held the line, and that includes the fact that we were probably impacted to a much greater extent than a lot of neighboring communities. You know, we do have a significant money that goes into our general fund from lodging and liquor taxes, and when you shut down essentially the hospitality industry, that is a $10 million hole in our budget for the city. And we took that $10 million hole and we held the line on our tax levy still, because we knew the impact it would have on people. We are doing this year because we know we have this transformational need in our fire department. We know we have concerns with regards to the police, and we want to make sure that we fund that. Even though crime is at a 4-year low, we want to make sure that we have the best police department in the area, you know, because we are impacted by neighboring communities. We're impacted by the fact that we've got multiple freeways, an airport, all of that type of stuff coming through here. And we do have to deal with those things. So just one second, yeah.
Shawn, outside of police and firemen, though, we've got health going up 16%, conservation of natural resources up 26%, and all other current expenditures going up 12%. So there's a lot more than police and firemen in here, and not cuts made anywhere.
Yeah, and we have made cuts, and I can talk to those, but I'm not sure exactly what you're looking at. But the public health is being funded, if you're just looking at the expenditures, those are being funded, a lot of the increase is being funded by grant funding. So it's not general fund, it's not part of the tax levy that is driving that funding. Also remind you that public health is a 3-city partnership with Richfield and Edina, so they're helping to fund those increase in expenditures. So that is not an increase in the levy amount, it's an expenditure amount.
According to the county, it is.
Is that county figures or city?
It's city figures that were sent out by the county with our Hennepin County tax statements.
Then I would have to look at that, because that would be news to me. So, well, I mean, yeah, for my property, but yeah, I understand your point. So I can take a look at that later, but we are investing in natural resources. I know that, but we've made other cuts in other areas to help with that. We also are working on, in order to, part of that position is to gather additional grant funding to help with our natural resources. That's part of our master plan. That was one of the highest rated things within the park master plan, is so when we go in and redo a park, we want to take a look at the natural resources in that area, do what we can there. Plus, we're very fortunate in Bloomington to have so many natural areas, and some of them are in really rough shape. A lot of undergrowth and things like that needs to be taken care of to restore those areas. And so we're really trying to focus on those areas. But they are not, again, it's about 8% of the levy out of that 10.5% that is being driven by public safety, between the bonding for the fire station and the police and fire budgets. The other 2.5% is everything else. And again, we brought that down from about 4.5%, which was our expectation last year. But happy to look into those details more with you.
I noticed in the paper the water rates are going to be increasing and the garbage collection. Yeah, so lots of things are going up and the overall bill is going to be a bit higher.
Yep.
Okay, so that was one point I wanted to make.
Can I address both of those quickly?
I'm sorry.
Can I address both of those quickly for you and for everyone else here? So water rates are, I forget the exact amount that we increased the water, stormwater, all of those. I think it was in the 5 to 8% range, depending on which one it is. That is a not insignificant increase, absolutely. The one thing I remind people is rate, especially for water, does not equal cost. There are ways to reduce usage of water. A lot of people already do a really good job with that, and that's part of the thing. Those are going up again because of that infrastructure that we have that is aging, that is going to need to be replaced. And we show this every year, the cost that we get starting in 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And instead of having a huge, massive increase in 5 years to cover a huge project, we're trying to phase those in, build that working capital account so we can really even that out. So that is one of those areas where we're trying to get them up and sort of then keep them at a more of a baseline type of increase on those. In terms of solid waste, I actually think part of it is we have a contract with the consortium, which the residents of Bloomington voted to keep, and that contract has increases in it by contract, so that's not something we can control. That's not really a decision we're making in real time every year. Part of that, though, is we actually saw decreases, I believe, in the recycled areas. So I think when we looked at on the net basis, it ended up being a fairly small, like just a 1 or 2% increase on the solid waste when you looked at the totality of all those costs. The other question that I get a lot is with regards to organics. And for those of us that can do that, it is possible to switch if you put more into the organics and downsize your main trash. You can basically offset that cost. The council has raised the concern that there are people in our community, candidly, particularly some of our senior citizens, that are very low waste generators. And trying to find a more fair system for them is something that the council has raised. I mean, if you just don't generate a lot of trash, I mean, I know people that they don't have enough to put out the trash once a week, much less trash, organics, and recycle. And so is there a way to go to every other week for some people? Is there a way to do a different service level, reduce that cost for those low? Because let's be honest, the goal is less trash. I mean, Burnsville's building a huge mountain of trash over there because we got too much trash in this region. And that's what we're trying to do as a community. We're trying to, hey, let's figure out what we don't have to landfill. And that's organics, that's recycling. And we all generate some level of that. And let's try to get it to the most appropriate spot for it to go. But we continue to try to find a way to help those people that really just, they're already not generating a lot of trash. So, yeah.
What's the participation rate in the organics?
Just over 25%. So we had a goal in the first year to get 25% participation, and we've slightly exceeded that so far.
The bigger question on that, I think, is how much is being collected.
Yeah.
Because a lot more people might be contributing one little bag.
Yep. No, and I agree with that. The one thing that I would remind people on that, though, is the typical measurement of trash is different than what you may see. The traditional measurement of trash is by weight, so they measure it in tons, and the organics tends to be heavier and denser. Look, we got Christmas coming up here, and we're gonna have packaging and stuff like that. It fills up a garbage can fairly quickly with that type of stuff, or a recycle bin fairly quickly, but it's not dense, it's a lot of air. Whereas, that half, chicken breast that you didn't eat, or, the leftover potatoes, it's dense, it's moist, it's heavy, it goes in there, and so, it may not look like as much as it actually is, but I think it's a good point, and I think that's the goal. We want more of that going to organics. And we want less of it going to landfills, and we don't want to have more landfills, expanding more landfills in the Minnesota River Valley and all of that. That's what we want to avoid. But, you know, we don't have very good options beyond that at this point.
Last question for me.
Yeah.
When you say that you don't expect a tax increase again as large as we're looking at for next year, are you also factoring in the possibility of getting the World's Fair and how much, I know you're going to be speaking to that later, but as far as taxes go, how much do you expect local taxes to be funding that?
My expectation for local taxes to fund that is extraordinarily minimal. There are some expenses for travel and things like that, for staff and things that we are paying for, but in terms of anything for that, they will not come out of the general fund. There may be development costs for the World Expo, as an example, parking. That's a very normal city municipality funded thing. Water, sewer upgrades that we may need to make in order to have the capacity there. Very typical that those are paid for. Those will be paid out of TIF funding, South Loop development funding in that area that we have available. They will not be general fund taxes. They will not be your property taxes. Again, there will be some minimal costs of staff time, of some travel and things like that if we're fortunate enough to win the bid for the World's Fair, or not us, it's not our bid, it's the state of Minnesota and the US that is doing that, and they're looking at Bloomington as the location to do it. So frankly, they are more going to potentially put some money into it, but they, at a federal level, put money into World's Fairs to have their facility, their booth there, for lack of a better term, already. So, and that was something I believe that changed a few years back under the Trump administration. And
do you expect law enforcement to be funded separately for that period, that 3-month period?
I believe that it will be funded similar to how we've done other extremely large events like Final Four, Super Bowl, and things like that. We had a very good partnership with the federal and got reimbursed for overtime and things of that nature from that group. It's my expectation that it would be a similar. Now, again, will there be some costs that we have? Probably. But, you know, will we have some overtime just to make sure we have coverage throughout the community that's appropriate? Absolutely. But we have proven in the city of Bloomington that we can handle those large events. I mean, we had the Super Bowl here. A ton of the events were in Bloomington at the mall and things like that. And we hit it out of the park. We did it extremely well. It was a great event, and we've done other events. So. You know, and the one thing that is different, and maybe I'll just skip ahead to that, because there's just more information on the budget, how much it would impact the median home. You know, currently we're looking at about $1,150. Again, $750 of that, the majority of that is going into police and fire. So there we are, World's Fair Expo. So what this allows the city to do is really drive some new development within the South Loop District. Obviously, one of the last areas of development that's left in the city of Bloomington. We've made great strides there. You know, we've had SIC move their national headquarters to Bloomington, do their first phase, working on multiple other phases. We had Skywater Technologies expand their facility over there. We have a new residential building being built with a grocery store. So that's good. There'll be a grocery store in the South Loop area. There's a new coffee shop. I was totally bummed when the old one, you know, had to close there. But I forget what's there now. I was just at Hazelwood recently. Anyways, so I mean, it's a thriving, growing area, and you know, this would really just sort of take it to the next level. And from the perspective of the city, it would allow us to have permanent development in that area that would be not just a legacy, but would be an attraction to other businesses and things to come into that area. And again, this would not be funded through our general fund property taxes. This is a USA, as it says on the screen, Minnesota USA bid the location happens to be in Bloomington, and like any other development, we're going to work with the developer, with that group, to make that come to fruition if we can and if it makes sense for the city of Bloomington. So,
Being that we have so little undeveloped land, how have we managed to keep that undeveloped? I mean, okay, my suspicion is the city or somebody giving them money to keep it aside for us. Why didn't they sell out that land years ago to some developer?
yeah, I won't comment on 555's motivations for not doing something with it, but they own the adjacent lands to the east and the property to the north where they're looking at the water park. So,
Doesn't that farm own some of it?
yeah, the farm does. That is not actually part of the site for the expo.
Oh, it isn't.
No, it's just the adjacent lands to the east, and then if you go where the water park is looking to develop the water park, if you go just north of that, that would be the other part, and then there would be a connection between those two. Yep. So that, and but like we've made good development in other areas. I think it's one of those things that takes time, finding the right project to come into those areas. And I think the other thing that we have going for that area, federal legislation may help us with some of our semiconductor industry. We're really strong in semiconductors within Bloomington, and hopefully we can help our business partners there expand their businesses to meet the needs of well, frankly, the global community. So you can get refrigerators and stuff, hopefully. So, yeah, any other questions on the expo? It's a big project. Frankly, I'm very excited about it. I know there's some people nervous about it. We're being very careful about making sure that the community of Bloomington is protected in this. And, if nobody came to it, it's not on our dime. It's not on your dime. So it's just like any other business that didn't work out. There'd be some stuff there, and we'd figure out what to do with it next.
Do you expect, or would you expect, I don't know if you've done any research about other World's Fairs in the West, in the Western Hemisphere, comparable, to the United States. What changes have come for those communities afterwards, or in the preparation? I'm wondering about property values. Would you expect property values to increase? Would you expect that the real estate market would be better in Bloomington as a result of contractors coming in and people doing the work to do this?
I don't want to overreach. I would expect commercial values, our property tax base in the commercial sector, to go up because of the building of these commercial units. I don't know that there would be a direct impact on residential property values because of it, because it is, although it is a multi-month event, it is only a multi-month event. It will be fairly isolated to the South Loop area. We have the hotel capacity, the transportation capacity to keep it contained there. So I don't think there's going to be a lot of spillover into the residential areas. But the benefit will be, and this is true today, one of the things that Bloomington benefits from is the fact that we have approximately 50-50 ratio between commercial, industrial, and residential property tax base. Most communities are 30% commercial, 70%, so their residents are paying a lot higher burden for their city functions, their city government functions on the property tax base. So to the extent that we're able to develop a parking lot, an empty field, into something of real significant value, adds to that tax base and helps all of us out in terms of those costs. But I don't know that there'd be a specific impact on the actual valuation of the property, just relative to other tax-paying categories.
Do you expect that the ratio is going to even out at that time? Because since COVID and the people working at home, the commercial and the lack of people not going traveling and stuff, the ratio has been tilted. So do you expect it to even out at that time?
I would not necessarily say at that time. I think it will even out as office space comes back, but here's what I'm going to say about that. I don't know when that will be. Second thing, I think we're going to continue to see pressures on residential housing to push the prices up. The reality is we have a significant housing shortage in the state, in the region, in the country. We have underdeveloped residential property for over a decade. There's just not enough places. And as the millennials are looking for places to live that aren't their parents' basement, they're not finding places that are affordable. And those that are getting into the earnings where they can buy something up, they're pushing the prices of those properties up. And so until we deal with the housing industry in total, I think there's going to be continued escalation of prices within Bloomington. I mean, the reality is Bloomington has a lot of very traditionally affordable properties, particularly the Ramblers throughout our community, but even over here, a lot of townhouses and things like that. And those just keep getting bid up, and I've talked about this a number of times. That's one of my biggest concerns about our property tax system, which is the system. It's the system we got. The state tells us that's how we have to collect the money to pay for our fire department, our police department, our public works, all of those things. But we're pushing up the prices of the least expensive housing in our community, which is raising the taxes for those least able to afford it. And it's something that we talk about a lot. And how do we balance that? How do we balance that reality with the needs of the community? So kind of a long-winded answer there. And that's just my own speculation. That's not city policy or anything like that. That's just my own, take it for what it's worth. At this point, I think we'll maybe try to get back onto the previously scheduled program. So sorry for deviating from the program to the staff who is here. But I think Chief Seal has questions for me.
Okay, some of these questions I think you might have already addressed, so you can field them as appropriate. This question says, please explain city budget. Just want to make sure there's not stuff on the back. Please explain the city budget, plus $5 million for 2 policemen, general government at 13.5%, health at 16.5%, culture and rec 26.8, it looks like other 12.4. Were any cuts made?
So I think we talked a little bit about that already. Happy to try to expound on it. But in terms of cuts, you may recall that we had the CBAC, the Community Budget Advisory Council, a few years back, and we did make cuts. Again, that's how we were able to get to a 2.75% levy increase, even absorbing the decrease in lodging and liquor taxes that went into the general fund. And so we made significant cuts throughout everything, right up until we ran into public safety. And that is where the council, we could have got to zero, candidly. And it would have taken cuts within the police department, within fire safety and all of that. And the council said, we're not comfortable with that. Let's get it as low as we can there. But there were cuts in park and rec in terms of staffing programs. Some of the more visible cuts that we've made, some people agree with, some people disagree with, but we closed the DMV because it lost money every year. And traditionally that is a service provided, or at least maybe not traditionally, but throughout the rest of the county, throughout the rest of Hennepin County, the vast majority of those facilities are provided by the county, including in Edina at the Hennepin County Service Center there. There are a few. Richfield provides limited services, not the full service. And then there are a few other private places like Prior Lake. I think Burnsville's is a Dakota County. So there's kind of that, it is, I'm not going to say it's rare, but it's not common for a city to have its own DMV, and we were losing money, and we were looking at continuing to lose money on that operation. Just the reimbursement rates from the state made it such that we would, as Bloomington residents, have to pay to have that service. So that was one of the more high-profile cuts that we made. We made not a cut, but a savings in our budget by partnering with Three Rivers Park District at Highland Greens Golf Course. And they took over management and operations. That was a golf course that was losing about $300,000 a year. There was conversations on what to do with it. There were a number of different avenues looked at, including development along Normandale, that would have maintained the golf course. The golf course was never going away, but it would have utilized the sale of that land and some of those tax revenues to offset the losses at the golf course. That didn't come to fruition. There were a look at partnering with the PGA. That kind of evaporated when COVID hit. They lost their ability to fund that through donations and things of that nature. Wouldn't say it's completely gone, it could come back. And ultimately we found a good partner in Three Rivers that has multiple golf operations, and so that they could run it efficiently by combining it with their other ones. So those are some of the more high profile cuts that we've made within our budget, but departments have made a lot of cuts. And like I said, we went into this year we're probably looking at about a 4.5%. Then we took a look at the needs of our public safety services, and we got up there, and candidly, I think all the other departments, operations, park and rec, community services, I mean, fairly, they looked at their budget, and I think we're told by senior leadership in the council, we need you to hold the line this year. We really need you, to come in low so that we can afford these other things that our community is telling us is a priority. And so they made difficult choices in terms of that budgeting process. So we've had real cuts the last few years. We've had really holding the line this year. And again, I just remind people that we had one of the lowest tax levy increases in the region the last couple of years. And frankly, even what we're looking at here, which I think will get down probably somewhere a little bit over 9%, that's what the council directed staff to try to bring back as a recommendation for Monday. That's not going to be out of line with a lot of other communities. And they're not making the kinds of difficult decisions Bloomington is making. They're not making the transformational changes that we're looking at making. And they're just looking at the inflationary costs and those types of things. So if you watch the meetings, you know that I'm not shy of sharing my opinion on things, but I will give credit to our staff. They've really, really tried to hold the line on things where they can.
The DMV, that ship has sailed, so I'm sorry. But to me, and a lot of people, I'd rather see us lose money on a DMV, which seems more of a core function of a government or a city, than golf courses, or even big.
Yeah, and I take that point, and I think there's many people that share that opinion. There are many people that looked at the other way, that this is more of a core service at the county level, and the county should make sure it's widely available, conveniently available for people. I personally have used the Southdale Service Center, and it's quick and efficient and nice. That's not taking anything away from the staff that worked in Bloomington. But no, I hear your point. In terms of golf big and things like that, I think that, as a community, there's been a consistent approach and willingness to invest into park and rec type amenities. And I know we call those enterprise funds, but we always have that conversation. Are we really expecting them to break even? My personal opinion is operationally, we should be able to expect them to break even, but it's difficult. It's a difficult environment for them. So I think it fits into that park and rec, and similarly, we don't make money on soccer fields, baseball fields, football fields, or any of those other things. We are also, and the park and rec staff has been looking at cost recovery on those. What are appropriate targets? How much can we get back, and things like that. So I think we did something when we were doing Highland Greens back several years ago that showed the city subsidized a round of golf just as much as the golfer paid for that round of golf at Highland. So, the cost of the tax subsidy support, the tax support for Highland Greens was, if you divided it by the number of rounds, was essentially equal to what people paid for that round. But that's now zero or better, working with Three Rivers Park District, and then we have some agreements in place with regards to capital costs, which I think will help us out in the future if we can have a joint partnership with them on improving clubhouses and things like that. So, all right, we'll go back to the moderator.
Will you campaign differently now that we have RCV?
No. My campaign, every time I've campaigned, I have always been an independent. I have never been supported or endorsed or anything like that by either party. And the way that I believe I earned this position is I went and knocked on a lot of doors and walked a lot by myself. I went and talked to people, and that's what I did before, and that's what I do again. And that's why I love that you guys are here. That's what I'm about. And again, those of you that watch the meetings very closely, you know I've said this probably more than a couple times. I've voted for or against things that I agree or disagree with because I felt that that's where the community was. You know, my opinion may have disagreed with the community on things, but you know, and that's candidly, that's a tough thing as a person in my position to try to have that balance. I mean, you run, you have ideas, you want to bring those to the forefront, but you know, at the end of the day, I represent you guys and all the other people. And one of the things that former mayor told me that's always stuck with me, former Mayor Winstead, is that, you know, you may be elected in District 2, but once you're there, you represent the entire community. And just one example of how I've tried to do that, trails are very important to our community. It's one of the highest things that people want, and frankly, we're not where we should be on those types of things, having good trails throughout the community. But I look at Normandale Avenue, and the county built these beautiful trails on both sides of Normandale, and they're great, they're fantastic. Don't get me wrong, but we got sidewalks on the east side of our town falling apart. You know, we have, if you go here, we're looking at a trail along Old Shakopee. We have bike trails, 109th, 110th, 11th. We restriped. It's not on the, it's an on-road facility with striping. Redid a trail down off of Auto Club in Minnesota Bluffs. So if you go here, you'll have 3 trails within a mile of each other going east-west. Well, what are we doing on the east side for trails? How are we connecting people over there to their churches, to their schools, to their parks, to the wildlife refuge, all of those things? I mean, I'm elected in District 2, I'm not crazy, you know, I get it, but, you know, once I'm there, you know, what's best for our entire community? That's the only thing I'm trying to decide. You can agree with me, you can disagree with me, I appreciate that, but that's all I'm trying to do, and I'm willing to come out and talk to you about it.
Since the city declared a climate emergency last year, what temps are the stats set at in City Hall? No higher than 68 degrees in the winter time and no lower than 78 degrees in the summer, according to Centerpoint.
That one I'll have to follow up on. Can you make a note of that? I have no idea. City Council, yeah. We don't set that, but let me just answer it this way. A couple years ago, we approved funding for a number of initiatives within our building, including Civic Plaza, for sustainability upgrades. And it was kind of a cool program because there was a guarantee that those upgrades would either equal or exceed the cost that we put into them. So the savings from our energy savings would meet or exceed. So it had to do with, you know, mechanical systems, lighting systems, insulation systems. And so I have to believe there are a number of controls within there that control those temperatures. And the only thing that I'm specifically familiar with is they're not super effective during the change of seasons and or large groups. So the Civic in City Hall there where the council chambers are, when it changes temperature, it can get really cold in there, and then in the spring it gets really warm as the whole system adjusts. And if you guys want to come and you're either really thrilled about something we're doing, which is very rare that a lot of people show up because of that, or if you're really unhappy about something we're doing, and that's more common that people will show up then, the room can change temperature quite a bit during that time. So, but we are making a concerted effort to have the right types of controls, the right type of measures in place, and doing it in a financially responsible way, that there is a payback, not only economically, but also from the sustainable practices standpoint.
This is more of a request than a question. In the 5500 block of Eliason Drive, they need a street light in the middle of the block.
We will get that to Public Works and Engineering and take a look into that. So I see Mr. Sable making a note of it. So
Next, in real, and there's a dollar sign, so in real dollars, adjusted for inflation, is the cost to fund Bloomington up or down since you joined council?
Up. I don't know the dollar amount, but yeah, it's up.
Clarification, what did we get for that?
Some of it is inflationary. Some of it you got the same of what you did before.
Regardless of inflation, that was the intent.
Okay, yeah, so you want to take that out? So we are doing more with regards to the parks. So we have funded a number of initiatives within parks, again, to transform them from what they were 30, 40 years ago. We've made concerted efforts within those areas. We have continued to invest in our ability to outreach and engagement. We have an entire division that was started up a few years back that helps with events like this, but also other engagement opportunities. Like I said, we've transformed the way we do strategic planning, our master planning in terms of the parks process, so that we can get feedback and engagement from the community. So it's not just us, and frankly, it's not just the people that know us and call us, or it's not just the squeaky wheel or anything of that nature. So we've been trying to be much more deliberate in that. We have been doing a number of things within natural resources to take care of those parks, as I mentioned before. And yeah, I mean, I think that's a good question. I can probably get you more details on things, but just off the top of my head, those would be a few of the items. Yeah.
Not to find an excuse for the increase, but I've heard some people say that maybe for many years taxes were artificially low to keep them low, but we didn't keep up with the maintenance as much, and now we have to kind of make it do that. I mean, as a homeowner, you know what happens if you get it off.
Yeah. And I'm not going to, put down anyone who came before me. I think a lot of great people there, but I do think, just take one example, Creekside. I mean, nothing was done there in terms of maintenance and things like that, and now it is a facility that is in dire need of just flat out replacement. Some of those things are, just changes. As we talked about, we funded and rebuilt, are in the process of rebuilding the second fire station. So that is one of those cost increases. What does it go to? Well, it goes to a fire station that is for the modern environment, for the model that we need for this community. And frankly, bottom line, it fits the trucks. I mean, if you've ever been in there and seen, there's like no room between them. It looks like my garage and my two cars next to each other. So, it's not, they just didn't work. And so that's some of the stuff we've been spending on in terms of the community and doing those things. Some of those things, are there other ways to address? I mean, I think that's an important conversation to have. Do we need to replace everything, or can we upgrade some things? The other thing that we've been very diligent in having the conversation about at the council level is to ensure that we don't leave to the next generation some of the similar issues that we're facing now, that we are planful. Even if you look at when we're doing the community center discussion, forget about the location of it, but just looking at the cost and the structure, that built-in replacement cost. That had that built into the financial model so that we wouldn't have to go, 40 years down the road and have major improvements that the community had to sit there and wrestle with and try to figure out. We wanted to be planful about those things. The pavement management program, where we look at all of the roads on a regular cycle so we can plan for them and we know and we can forecast when they're coming. Our CIP forecasting all of the major improvements coming forward. I mean, we've taken that planning process to the next level so that we know if you look at all the budgets, we have working capital, and staff can explain to you why the working capital goal was set what it is, what projects they're looking at coming in 5, 6, 10, 15 years, and why they're having that working capital to do that so that we don't have those major spikes and issues. And so just, again, credit goes to staff for being so planful and thoughtful about those things, but also doing it in a way that reduces the overall long-term cost. I think pavement management program is an excellent example of that. That we seal coat, that we do overlays at the right routine, reduces or extends how long those roads last, so we don't have to tear them out and have that major rebuilding cost for, you know, decades later. I mean, we could just let them all fall apart and just rebuild them, but ultimately that would be, you know, we'd save a couple dollars today and we'd spend a lot more tomorrow. So what is that, penny wise, pound foolish, I think, something like that. So.
Why was there not better planning regarding the need for public safety expenditures that are now the reason for the property tax hike of 10% for 2023?
I guess, to be fair, I disagree a little bit with the premise. I think on the fire side, we as a council have been talking about it for 5 years and working. Chief Seal has been very consistent in informing us what the needs, what the changes are going to be. I think we were probably ready to do some of that a couple years ago, but it just didn't make sense in the middle of a pandemic when we don't really know which direction that was going to go. You know, we have come out into an economic environment that's an inflationary environment, but it's also an environment of very high employment. Wages are going up. Generally, a lot of people are doing better, and I think it's time to start making some of those. In terms of the police department, I'll just be blunt on that one. We have a new chief, and a new chief comes in and looks at things and has ideas, and I'm willing to support Chief Hodges in the vision that he has of what he sees that that department needs. And you know, Chief Potts was a fantastic chief. You know, I consider him a friend of mine. And, you know, but we have a new person, and I said, let's give him the benefit of the doubt. I think he's taken a look at what our community needs, where we could put that money and what we can do. And I think, you know, I think it's wise. And I think we've been able to expand. I guess this also goes to the question, what else are we getting? I mean, you know, our police do a ton of things outside of police work. And so as part of that, obviously we know we have a mental health crisis within this country. And our police are sometimes the first people to respond. And I'm going to tell you, they're really, really good at it. But we also have embedded social workers within our police department. We now have 2 of them. And they're able to do the follow-up on those things so that it isn't just the police officer doing a great job to de-escalate, to help that person with the crisis that they're facing right then and there. It's how do they get the follow-up services? If you talk to our police officers, they deal with the same people time and time and time again. And so we're trying to cut that short. We're trying to get those people the help they need so that our officers don't get that call from them or for them again, to get them the real help that they need. And so we've been making investments in that. Those will have long-term payoffs. And so those are, I guess, just a few of the things that I think are kind of, we're working through on the public safety side and why that's driving some of those costs.
An audience member mentioned that he would need to pay $800 more in taxes. Isn't that only true if he has a very expensive house? Your slide said $12 per month increase for the average home.
Yeah, it all depends on a couple of factors. Yes, price of the house will impact that, certainly. The reality is the slide that we have, that's the city portion. You know, I don't want to speak for the commenter, but the 800 could be the entirety of the city, state, county, or school count. The city, school, county, that goes into that property taxes. The other portion is that that is for the median price home, but like I was talking about, some of those lower price homes, because they're increasing faster than other homes, their increase could be disproportionate, particularly on a percentage basis, maybe not on a dollar basis, but on a percentage basis. The other thing that I always like to remind people about is make sure you check if you're eligible for any of the rebate programs from the state. There are specific ones. If your property taxes go up over, I believe it's 12%, that you're eligible for it, and I don't believe that's income limited. And then there are other programs that are income limited, and then there are programs available for senior citizens specifically. So check with that. If you need help with that, I believe assessing, our assessing department would be happy to help you walk through those types of programs and help you figure out what you might be eligible for. But a lot of people, I mean, the state has these stats, a lot of people don't claim these things. There's money out there for you if you go in and do that. So,
what is the median priced home in Bloomington?
Good question. I believe it's just shy of 400,000
355, 600.
approximately. Okay. So 355, 600. So yeah, in the mid 350s. So, and again, that's median, so half above, half below. You know, the average price is probably different, but skewed based on some either really small or really large houses. So generally, anything done in dollars, you use median. It's the best way to measure it.
Shawn, will you support changing the format of these meetings to allow give and take with citizens?
No, absolutely not. So I think I've demonstrated the answer to that. Is that fair? Okay.
How many tax increases are coming? How many years? Are these tax increases permanent?
Yeah, once the tax increase goes into effect, it's there. This is not like an income tax. It's a levy. I believe that there, in the last 2 decades, was 1 year that was at 0%, and that's normal for cities. Again, part of that is offset by economic growth. You know, the example I give to people, you know, forget about commercial, let's just do residential. If you had a community with 10 houses and you had a $1,000 tax levy, you know, everyone pays $100 into it. If that goes up, if you build one more house and that goes up 10%, everyone still pays $100. You know, it's a very simplistic way of looking at it, but if we can do economic development right in the community and grow that tax base, if we can do residential development where it's appropriate in the right way, we can take and have increases because we just have more people. And we don't necessarily each individually have to pay more. The reality is that's probably not going to offset everything. There's also inflation and things like that. And then other things that the community decides that it's willing to invest into. I think that the council does take a look at when we're looking at something to invest into, you know, are there other lower priorities that may make sense that we reduce the investment or discontinue the investment in them? But based on decades of experience, I think the levy will go up every year. So I'll go out on a limb on that one. So I think that one's pretty.
Given the third violent attack at 90th and Penn, how does that compare to violent attacks at other malls, not including Mall of America?
I don't actually expect an answer tonight. I guess I'd love to see that addressed by the chief. I don't know if we just hear about it more than Southtown or, well, there's a bunch of little strip malls. That tiny little half-empty mall having the roast beef guy shot, the liquor store guy banged over his head, and now this. It's, what's going on?
I was wondering if the layout contributes to that, because there's a big parking lot in the front and and the strip malls at the back of the lot. And I actually like that because the parking lot's lighted and I feel safer. But I know the new design for cities is to pull all of the development up to the street and have the parking in the back. Is that because it's safer to do it that way? Or prettier?
I think it is aesthetic. I also think it makes it more walkable because you're not having as many conflicts between cars, traffic, and things of that nature. I would have to defer to staff and get back to you on if that adds to safety. I will point out with the tragic fatal shooting, that was a specific individual that was targeted there. It was not a random event. It was not a random shooting. And again, kudos to our police department for tracking that down so quickly, multiple states away. We just have a great department to be able to figure that out that quickly, put that all together, and make an arrest. And it's just a great job. But it is, I will go on the record as saying that is, not aesthetically, but in terms of my mind space, one of my favorite malls, strip malls in the entire community, because it was very close to where my first house in Bloomington was. I was there all the time. I remember when there was the grocery store and Mr. Movies, and you know, and I'm soon hoping to not be remembering that yellow gas station that Europolis is going to take down with the help of the city. But yeah, it's just, you know, I spent a lot of time there, you know, when I was single even, and would stop there and get some food, get a movie at night, and it's so tragic in my mind, you know, what happened to Kevin, and you know, even this was, you know, not random, but still tragic that someone died in our community. So yeah, go ahead.
Little novelty, Lincoln 71, the Red Barn.
So yeah, yeah. there's probably a few. So just one second, yeah.
Just one suggestion, and I was going to bring it to a let's talk. That in that strip mall there is a conditional use permit for a billiard hall, and the neighborhood gave some feedback to that. And one thing, they asked the owner of the billiard hall to produce a safety plan, and he did, and the Bloomington police looked at it. It wasn't until after the Planning Commission's approval of the conditional use that I got around to downloading the safety plan to look at it. It's 7 lines long. That's it. Seven sentences. And so I was thinking it might be nice if the city had some model safety plans in light of things that have happened that can guide new businesses on things to think about, like protocols for when they call the police, under, you know, what kinds of incidents would have them call the police, posting signs about whether they allow conceal and carry weapons. You know, just, there's, I think, a lot of things, but providing businesses a model plan to get them thinking so that it's prevention on the front end. Because the police do a great job on the back end, but it'd be nice not to have anything happen at all.
I actually partially agree with that statement, but our police does do a lot on the front end. And we have community service officers that work with residential neighborhood groups as well as business groups. And one of the examples of that is we obviously had concerns during COVID. We had some of our hotels that were housing people through the county and various service organizations. And there were candidly some problems in the beginning. And our police went in and worked with the organizations, with the hotels, and they put in place those types of plans. So they have some experience working with that. I know not too far from here, we had issues at one of the apartment complexes where there were unfortunate incidents on a more regular basis than was comfortable. And went in, there was an ownership change as well, and worked with them on, you know, how do they do tenant screening? How do they do that in a fair and equitable manner, but also in a way to protect the residents there and throughout the community. And, you know, we haven't had an incident in a long time. So we do a lot very proactively. And so I think that's something that, Mike, if you want to maybe make a note that we can talk with them about how do we work with those businesses, and especially if there's a concern. And I do believe, because it's a billiards hall, I believe there's a song about it as well, about trouble in River City or something like that. So I will spare you all singing. So I am not a good singer. I don't even sing in church. So yeah, Pam.
When you mentioned earlier about people applying for their tax refunds, because there are a lot of good, helpful things out there. Before that, make sure you have homestead status.
Yes.
And the city now has a meeting coming up to help people with homestead status that is being led by the county, but the city just advertised it on their page. I've met a gal at Hennepin County Assessments that is a totally awesome person and been very helpful with the information. I've told some people, I snoop on the Hennepin County page, you should have homestead status.
Well, good for you. It is all public record, so you can snoop. But no, that's a good point, and you know, anyone can find that on the city's website to find out how to do the homestead status. Again, our assessing office can help with any of the refunds. The other thing that I encourage people to do, because our tax process is not the most intuitive process in the world, but you will get your assessed value in the spring. And then you have a period of time to work with assessing either in the city, or then there's a little bit of a period of time after that at the county level if you don't think your valuation is correct. And again, your valuation drives a lot of your cost. Where we typically hear from people is in the fall, after they get the truth in housing statement that tells you how much you're going to pay, and then people are like, my house isn't worth that much. Well, your opportunity to take care of that was 6 months ago. You know, your next opportunity will be in 6 months. You can do it for the next year, but you're 6 months behind the curve on that. So in the spring, check what they say your house is valued at. And if you don't think that's accurate and you have good evidence that it's not accurate, you know, your neighbor just sold or something like that, work with assessing. You know, the information that they work from the time frame is usually sales that happen in the 6 to 18 months prior to that valuation. I believe those are the right things. So if something happened just recently that may impact that, feel free to bring that. There's a whole process available to you to challenge that, to correct it if it's not right. And we have a board made up of professionals within the industry that help and look at all of those types of issues. So, yeah.
When someone who qualified for low-income housing gets a better job or raise, do they have to move out?
Good question, and I will try my best to answer. I don't know the entirety of the legalities of all of it. It is my understanding that they can stay there at least for some period of time when they start to make more money. That there may have been actually a change in legislation a few years ago that allowed for that. But in general, I believe they can change. But whoever asked that, please follow up with me so that we can work with our community development team and get you the actual specific answer on that. But it's not well, you got to raise, you're out. You know, it's not going to discourage people from getting a better job, or, you know, we don't want any type of disincentive within that type of program. We want people to do better. And I think the reality is based on market factors. You know, I've done this, my family's done this, maybe yours has, but as we've done better and we've done economically better in our jobs, we got a different house. You know, and I know a lot of people that rent, and as they do better, they maybe rent a nicer place, or maybe they go and really put their roots down in the community and buy a house. So I would think that most of that would be taken care of just by the market, people looking for that type of opportunity. And, you know, the cycle happens on the back end too. You know, people have these big houses that they raise their family in, and they're great and they're lovely, and then at some point maybe they don't need as much space, so they look for a smaller space as well, and a little bit less expensive space.
Think you've answered this one. What has the council done to reduce the budget?
Yeah, again, we, going back a couple years, had the Community Budget Advisory Committee. We continue to look at that. We continue to ask for input from staff. And again, we're looking at all areas of the budget. And the other thing I'd put out there is if there's something you're seeing, we're very open to ideas from residents, businesses, things like that. If you're seeing things, we'll take a look into it, and some of those actually make it in. I think the Community Budget Advisory Committee looked at well over 100 different options of areas that we could cut, reduce costs, things of that nature. And, you know, we still look at that list every once in a while and to see if there's anything that makes sense to reconsider.
What is the cost to install electric charging stations for the 10 new pickups?
I don't know the answer to that. And I don't know if there's any grant funding, so whoever asked that, I'll have to follow back up with you on it. What I would say is there are already electric charging stations at Civic Plaza. I believe there are 4 of them already there. I believe there are also a number of incentives from the utilities, from the federal government, and particularly with recent federal legislation, either the Infrastructure Act or the Inflation Reduction Act has significant investments into those types of programs to encourage electrification. One of the other things that we're looking at, I don't know if it'll come to fruition, but there is money for electric charging stations off of freeways. One of the corridors Minnesota is looking at, obviously, is 35, and looking at having them every 50 miles. And I don't know if we'll be able to get it again, but in my mind, I mean, we've got the intersection of 35 and 494. It's obviously heavily traveled if you've ever been on it. So it, in my mind, would be a really good location where somebody could stop, charge, shop, that type of thing. That doesn't specifically go to the city facilities on there, but they would be within the community trying to expand that electric network for people. And full disclosure, I drive a plug-in hybrid vehicle, so I'm always looking for a place to plug in. So.
Who was hired by the city last year with the extra money? Question mark. Now that we have the answer from Councilman Lohman on how many discrimination complaints there have been in the last 5 years, number 1 in parentheses, that was dismissed, why did we have to hire equity directors?
So I'm going to have to punt on the first one. I'm not sure exactly the hires from last year off the top of my head. Again, follow up with me, we can get you that answer. In terms of equity, that has something within the strategic plan that we have asked for staff to include that with in everything that we take a look at within the city. I would encourage people not to look at that as something that is excluding other groups. This is a yes and. We have for a long time taken and looking at the needs of families, seniors, kids, middle-class people, people of lower income, and we want to make sure that as our community evolves and changes, we are also looking at the needs of some people that have been traditionally underrepresented, and sometimes that takes a concerted effort. And so that's what we've asked that equity position, the equity people to do, is reach out to those communities, make sure we integrate those voices, thoughts into our conversations, into our thought process. So it is not to exclude other, it is not to raise any group above the other, it is just to make sure we aren't missing things because people don't know how to engage with us or aren't comfortable engaging with us. So, and that has been a directive of the City Council for staff to go out and do.
I think you addressed this one as well, but the increasing burden of rising taxes is exceedingly difficult for those of us on fixed income and retired. How can you stop the endless tax and spend cycle to keep the city affordable?
Yeah, and that's something we're constantly thinking about again, and we will constantly look at that. It is very much front and center for us in our conversations. We know these things impact you. We don't take these decisions lightly. And we know that a lot of our community has been here for decades, are now on fixed incomes and enjoying the golden years, and we don't take that at all lightly. And we will continue to work to provide the services to the level that the community expects and deserves as affordably as we possibly can. Yeah.
Going back to the previous one on the equity.
Yeah.
If anything, a department about equity and inclusion should include more people. And as somebody of a certain age, let me tell you, you're over a certain age, looking for a job is not fun. They saw when I graduated, which was later, then you meet him, it's like, and you pass. It would be nice if there was an equity and inclusion department, including race, gender, age, disabilities, non-digital, whatever. It feels exclusive, and especially during COVID, when, what's his name, Nick, or whatever, the health department, always harping about how this was hurting the communities of color. I have a loved one in a nursing home, and let me tell you, the seniors stuck in nursing homes with less care and COVID workers. It's seniors, I know that you say they've been, but they don't get the attention at the meetings like the other groups do. They rarely mention seniors and how they were being affected by COVID.
I appreciate that feedback. I would say that Public Health with Dr. Kelly did talk about seniors and did take specific steps with regards to particularly those seniors that lived in congregate care type of facilities. Our public health department worked directly with them to try to mitigate impacts. It's a tough environment. We had a very susceptible group, particularly pre-vaccine, and in a living condition that was ripe for spreading it. The other factor that we had was a number of the people working there were younger, and they were still out and about in the community, and it was difficult to control that. We couldn't not have people go in to provide services, but by going in to provide services, they were presenting a risk for the people that live there. And I know that was something that public health was working directly with our major facilities on.
Public health was doing it. My point is that you know I watch all the meetings.
Yes, I'm aware of that.
Nick did not emphasize, a couple of times he mentioned seniors, but it was over and over, black. And that was just offensive knowing loved ones that are suffering there.
And I think that the COVID concerns related to the seniors are something that that we all agree with. That was a tough situation. We know that those were the highest mortality rates. Those were the people at the most risk. And you know, so point taken on that. Again, credit to public health for the work that they were doing to help protect those most vulnerable in our community. And that's my point, is this is not to try to put, from a policy position, any group ahead of any other group. It's to make sure that groups that traditionally aren't included in conversations are as well, that we're making an intentional effort to do that. You know, and I would also point out in terms of the seniors shifting off of COVID, you know, the city does put significant amount of effort into meeting the needs of seniors. Obviously, Creekside is a predominantly senior-focused facility that we invest, you know, nearly $1 million a year into funding out of taxpayer dollars through the general fund. When we talk about housing, you know, we looked at some of the projects there. We're working on some code revisions to make some of those smaller format single-family houses for those seniors that don't want to live in the apartment style type facility. We're really looking at those. Whenever we talk about health, it comes up. I think a couple of the areas that I really see, particularly for the senior community population here, that we talk about but we haven't made a lot of progress is transportation. I mean, there's like a metro mobility and some stuff like that, but I know a number of residents from having gone door knocking that, you know, it's difficult for them to get out of their house, and they're waiting for, you know, adult children or something to come get them or bring them groceries and things like that. It's very isolating. It's very challenging for them, but they want to stay in the community. They want to be able to get to church. They want to be able to get to the grocery store. They want to be able to get together with their friends and do all those things. And our transportation system right now is not great. It's difficult to facilitate those types of things. So, but, you know, as I talked about earlier, Park and Rec is really looking at having facilities that meet the broad spectrum, from young kids all the way through seniors and even those crazy adolescent kids that are looking for good things to do. So,
Who did you endorse for county attorney?
I did not endorse in any races in the last election, so I don't know why anybody would ask for my endorsement. I have no idea what power that would bring. So,
What plans are being made for Bry Park, and are you going to listen to the neighbors surrounding that park on their requests, or are you going to listen to the city?
Both. I will continue to listen to the entire community with regards to that, but I have also met with residents, neighbors in the Bry Park area and have attempted to help address their concerns with regards to the skating and things like that. It's my understanding that that will be available again this year. But in terms of the overall transformation, I think that when we get to Bry Park as part of the master planning process, the planning process is to go meet with the neighbors and talk through that neighborhood. So. All right. Is this the last one? I don't remember what we got. I'm getting the hook from the back.
I'm good either way.
I just want to point out, so we've got the guy who wants to close up the building.
Oh.
We're scheduled till 8. So if you're going to rapid fire, I want to get to the bowl, but I also want to be respectful of the guys who's got to clean up efforts.
I I can rapid fire and
I'll answer more
everybody can hear the
quickly.
questions, and then perhaps Shawn can address them in a different way, you know. Why does the city manager need an assistant? What repercussions came after the incompetence of being on the artistry board? Let me just rapid fire
okay.
these for you. You can take probably the most important ones. Highest inflation in 40 years, gas prices through the roof, retirees being squeezed on all fronts. The timing of these tax increases is awful. Those of us on a fixed income cannot afford this. How can you defend our interest and lower taxes? All right, so maybe not so rapid fire. Not a question, but a comment. The old Herberger's / Wards and Toys R Us stores would be a good location for a citywide center, senior center, athletics, meeting rooms, etc.
That was looked into during the community development or community center process, and the acquisition costs are just astronomical for property along 494. It would cost us a huge amount.
Since the council made a $150,000 gift to artistry, has there been 1, a public document detailing how that money was used? 2, since a council member and employee of the city sat on the artistry board, what action is being taken by the city to obtain the final audit since artistry has ceased operations?
Artistry continues to operate. It did not cease. There will be a forensic audit in 2023.
We are getting charged for the use of sports fields in Bloomington. Is there going to be improvements made to these fields? Our surrounding communities have pristine, level, and not a weed field. Please advise on how you will improve and maintain these fields to justify the increased cost for our youth sports.
All of those fees are being earmarked into improvements into the fields that they are being used for. Also trying to leverage those to get additional grant dollars to make improvements. So yes, those fees go directly into there. We also did hold that. That was a recommendation of the Budget Advisory Committee. We held that for 1 year because in particular one of the youth organizations had severe fiscal problems due to an internal problem that they had. So we held them off, gave everyone a year to plan for it. So, but those will be used for improvements. Sorry, trying to be short.
That's okay. Council has taken many actions to support our BIPOC and LGBTQ communities. Can you share what council is doing to support our seniors? I think you hit that.
I think I tried that earlier. So.
Regarding the city sales tax, what is the prospect for passage in the next legislative session? And when it passes, the residents must vote. What is the prospect for approval by voters?
It was in the budget at the legislature last year. It didn't get voted on because they just to come to a global agreement. So it wasn't our issue that held anything up. So I'd expect that it would be back to the legislature this year. Prospect based on our polling, scientific polling, random polling shows that there's support for the projects throughout the community. But end of the day, I think this is a good thing. These are big projects. It'll be up to the community.
The proposed community center will be funded by the city sales tax, which needs to be approved by the legislature and then the city's voters. Assume the sales tax is approved. How soon would the community center be started? Where will it be located? When might it be open? Best case.
Creekside, 2024 design, 25, 26 construction, maybe end of 26, 27 open. Best case scenario timeline.
What are members of the City Council doing to make living in Bloomington more affordable? Specifically, why does Bloomington have some of the highest water rates of all the surrounding communities, all of which are also participating in the Met Council's effort to conserve water? My monthly water bill has gone through the roof, along with higher property taxes. Tell us not what new programs you are trying to launch, but what you are doing to help all of us afford living in Bloomington. What costs are you cutting? I have plenty more, but this is a start.
I think I touched on most of that with the exception of our water rates are kind of median and they are at the low end of other communities if you consider that they're softened and the cost that it would take to soften it. So our water rates are actually very affordable in comparison to other communities around us.
And that was it.
Okay. Can we go back to the first one? I forgot what it was. I think there were a couple that I could skip, but.
The first one of which?
The first of the rapid fire.
I think that was about Mr.
Artistry? Yeah, okay. As I mentioned, artistry continues to exist, will continue to exist hopefully into the future. They're working on that. In terms of we will do a forensic audit on the $150,000. And I think there will be decisions before the council in terms of the city's role within artistry going forward, and if that makes sense to have us continue to be there. They're an independent organization. My opinion, this is not city opinion, this is my opinion, is they should be treated like all the other arts organizations, stand on their own feet and go through that.
The question was about Mr. Verbrugge.
Yeah,
And accountability. He is the city manager.
Yep. And I think in totality, the entirety of the board is accountable there, and they are working on a plan, a go-forward plan for that. So, and as you know, we declined a large loan to them previously. We did fund some salaries and things like that, and that's what we'll get at through the audit. But that was organizational failure from the entire board and leadership of that organization. And so I don't know that I don't personally think it's fair to hold just one person to account for the failure of an entire board.
And I'm not suggesting that should do, but there's been silence.
Okay. Well, I do believe we've talked about it, so we can talk more about that offline too, so appreciate it. Was there anything that I missed quickly before we get kicked out? Yeah.
I just want to thank you for holding this town hall and
Yes.
for being accessible.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely. My pleasure. And thank you all for coming. Very helpful for me.